We need to realize that if mom's not okay, baby's not okay. If baby's not okay, then mom's not okay.
Do you think like new parents or moms to be, they underestimate learning about fourth trimester?
People are starting to realize this is something that they need to learn about beforehand.
What are the common mistakes that parents do?
If you're going to bed share, we want to set up the bed as safely as possible. The issue with a lot of these containers is that they're not training the baby's muscles. They're not making babies stronger. Even if your doctor, it ends up being like, this wasn't a big deal at all, it's better to get it checked out.
Hi Jaquie, welcome to Mom's Abilities.
Thanks for having
I am
me.
so glad to have you here on my podcast today. And as you know, this podcast is dedicated to supporting new mothers throughout their pregnancy, postpartum, and motherhood journey, but also having expert talks just like you, and that's the reason we have you here today. I know we have a lot to talk about the fourth trimester, how parents can prepare themselves. But before we actually dive into the conversation, I would like you to give a little bit of a background about yourself and just to let our listeners know about your expertise.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm very
You're
excited
welcome.
to be here. So I am a pediatric sleep consultant, a new parent educator, and a postpartum doula. And I got into this work because I had my first child 7.5 years ago, and I was overjoyed, of course. It's very exciting to have a baby, but I also felt overwhelmed, exhausted, and alone. And I really felt like I was the first person to ever have a baby, right? And we talked about this before. I was like, why have billions of women done this before? But I feel like I'm the first one and I don't know what I'm doing. And I really thought that labor and delivery was going to be the hardest part. And I was not prepared at all. So my goal as a new parent educator, as a postpartum doula, as a pediatric sleep consultant, is to support new parents during this very exciting yet often challenging time.
As you mentioned that it started when you became a mom, it also gives me a sense that how becoming a mom gives you so much of different opportunities, and you want to do something in this to help other moms, and that's how we all start. So before we start talking about what fourth trimester is, I want you to give like a bit of a brief, like what exactly it looks like, how does it feel, and what is fourth trimester, because for some people, for some moms, this might be a new term that they are not very familiar with. So let's just go into like a brief explanation of what to expect.
Okay, so the fourth trimester is the first 3 months after your baby is born, technically the first 12 weeks. And it really is a time that the baby should still be in the womb. Our bodies cannot hold babies for longer than 9 months, but they should really be in there for 12 months because they are not fully formed. During the fourth trimester, babies need a lot more support than they do later on once they get to the 4th month, 5th month, 6th month. And that means that you might be holding your baby all the time, depending on your baby. It might mean that they want to be fed constantly. There is so much that it takes from parents during this time, and a lot of parents are worried that they're going to spoil their baby. And so one of the things that I like to say is you can't spoil a newborn. They need this support during this time. And I think giving that information to new parents goes such a long way, because during the fourth trimester, they are, they're doing so much for their baby. They're learning this new person. They're exhausted. And if they realize that that's normal, it makes things a little bit easier. The other thing that I'll say is something that happens during the fourth trimester is the transition to motherhood. So we talked about it before. It's called matrescence. And it's basically like in adolescence when children become teenagers, become adults, that is a big transition in their lives. Just like when we become mothers, it's a big social, spiritual, hormonal, emotional, physical transition that happens. And knowing that term, matrescence, really normalizes this transition.
That's right. And I can understand that when we give it a term, that's when we can expect people to normalize it. And then, like you said, that the babies are actually also learning, right, when they are born. For us, the world is very big. But for them, we are their whole world.
Exactly.
So, like people say this a lot, that don't spoil your baby. But I think loving your baby, caring for your baby when they just entered the world is not spoiling them by any means. That's what they need. In fact, that's the only thing that they need. Until the time we are in the hospital, we are surrounded by so many nurses. We have doctors coming in and out. Nurses come like every 1 to 2 hours. They're gonna check up on the mama. How are you doing, mama? How's the baby doing? But you have so much of support around you that you don't feel that kind of overwhelmed and exhausted when you're in the hospital. It hits you when you come home. I do remember I paged my midwife. It was like 2 a.m. in the night, and I said, my baby's crying so much. What do I do? And she said that they are just trying to learn how to survive, right? And you have to console them just by holding them. Just give them that comfort, and the baby will be fine. And that really worked. But for me, it was a midwife that I was having, and I had that support for like first 6 weeks. The midwife was visiting me, and then I was also visiting midwife. But for those who have an OB, I believe that they just have like the 6 week appointment after birth, right? So for those 6 weeks period, I feel like I had a lot of support from the midwives, and whatever questions I had, whatever concerns I had, I got all of them answered. Whereas somebody having an OB might not be able to run to them for every little concern that they're having. So what can they, expect? Not really expect, but how do they prepare themselves when they bring the baby home? Because that's the first kind of challenge, I would say, or the transition period, that they just come home, they are by themselves, they are the only people, the parents, who are going to take care of the baby.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I talk about a lot of this in my course, Surviving the Fourth Trimester, that helps parents prepare for the fourth trimester, because there are so many questions like this. One of the sections is called the first 24 hours, right? But to give a brief synopsis, I would say that within the first 24 hours after the baby is born, they are usually quite sleepy, right? They're pretty sleepy. They've gone through a whole thing of being born, and they're usually sleepy. And I find that a lot of parents will spend time texting, emailing everybody, getting all excited, video calling, having visitors, and that's great, and they should. But it's really important to limit that time, because in those first 24 hours, that's when you're likely going to be able to rest after labor and delivery, right? So I always suggest to my clients that they take that time to rest when that baby is sleepier. And a lot of the time parents will think, oh, I just got a really easy baby. That's why they're sleepy right now. And then within a day, the baby's crying more, they need more. And then within 3 weeks of that, they wake up more. They're asking for more from the parents. And so those first 24 hours, I would say to rest as much as you can. Then the first time coming home, as an aside, it reminds me that when I brought my son home, my second baby, I got home and it smelled like natural gas in my house. And I was all ready to bring my baby in, get him prepared so I could then go get my daughter, or so my husband could go get my daughter and bring her home and meet the baby. And I got there and the whole house smelled like natural gas. And I had to have my baby in January outside in the cold while we aired out the house. And it turns out that someone had left on we had a cleaner there to prepare the house, and they had left on the gas burner of our stove. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a homecoming for this baby. Luckily we cleared everything out and we got home. And what I would say is that time when people are coming home, it's really important to have support set up. So if you don't have family here, or if you don't have friends that'll come by, hiring support, a postpartum doula would be a really great option if you don't have a midwife, or in addition to a midwife, to come in and help support. If you do have friends and family, setting up times within the first 2 weeks where people in your friend group and within your family will come. We only want helpers to come in that first time. Okay. Those first 2 weeks, we only want people who we will designate as helpers. We don't want visitors. We don't want people that are we don't want, acquaintances that are going to come and sit there for 5 hours on your couch. We want people that are going to come, bring you food, wash the bottles, wash the laundry, fold the laundry, whatever it is. You can even put a note on the door saying, it would be great if you could help me with one of these things when you're in. Setting up the entryway to have, if you want to have hand sanitizer, to have masks, to have whatever it is you want to do to protect your newborn baby. You don't have to have that, but if that's what you want, you can have a sign that says, please wash your hands before touching the baby. Please wash your hands when you walk in. So really setting it up so that you have your support system ready to come and support you in the way that's going to be helpful to you, right? In terms of if it's just you and your partner and we don't have those opportunities, then we would want to make sure that we're making shifts for you. So, if dad can take the first 4 hours in the evening, you go to bed at 8 p.m., wake up at 12, feed the baby, dad goes to sleep. Taking shifts can also be really helpful in that first little bit of time.
So as you mentioned that the husband and wife both can take shifts, but having more people around, what can they do to help a new mom? Because it's not easy for the new mom to set those boundaries. As we talk right now, it's easier to discuss it now when we are past that stage. But any mom who's right now in that stage would probably be so fragile mentally and so vulnerable, they might not be able to convey those things to people around them. Yeah. But what should we expect from family members or the husband? What can they offer in terms of physical help and also mental help?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So physical help, I would say the best thing that any support people can do is bring food. Mm-hmm. Bring healthy food, home cooked meals, or picking something up from a healthy store. What new moms really need is they need to nourish their bodies with really healthy food, with protein, healthy fats, with vegetables, with fruit, anything. A partner can make a snacking plate for mom. If she is breastfeeding, she's going to be needing to take in about 500 more calories per day and drinking way more water. So if dad can make a plate of snacking foods, cheese, hummus, veggies, whatever it is, and just bringing it to mom, even bringing her some water and holding it with a straw so that she can drink while she's feeding, that's where partners can really come in. I would say that another thing that's really important is to set boundaries, right? And so we don't want people coming for really long periods of time because you will need your rest unless you want them to hold the baby and you can go rest upstairs. That works as well. Though I do find that most parents in those first few weeks are the ones that want to be holding the babies and they want people to be helping them with other things. So this is a great tip for any grandparents that are listening. Yes. Help around the house rather than always wanting to hold the baby. But in terms of the boundaries, setting a time that people can come and letting them know how long they have. So if you say you can come by at 3 o'clock, then don't just say, oh, we have time at 3 o'clock. Say, we have some time between 3 to 5.
Right. Yeah.
At 5 o'clock, we have to eat dinner. Or at 5 o'clock, I'm going to go have a rest. Setting that up before people come over really makes it a lot easier to end the visit because they already know when the visit is going to end.
But we have, it's sad and unfortunate, but there is some stigma built around PPD, baby blues, and the mental health of a new mom. So what I'm really trying to understand is that, we cannot expect everybody in the house, people who are staying with the new mom, to expect how she's doing mentally, or even to expect she might not be at her best right now because of going through such a big phase of her life, such a big event, the childbirth, that really triggers a lot of parts in your body and your mind. So what can we not expect, but what can we tell these family members who are living with the new parents, how can they understand the new mom and certain things that they should not say or certain things that they should not do, just so that it doesn't add up to the new mom's ongoing.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is tricky because it's different from mom to mom. But I would say that the number one thing is for any family members and any friends to really keep an eye on whether the mom is acting differently than she normally would, because there are so many postpartum mood and anxiety disorders that she could be suffering from. And 80% of parents actually, and of parents, not just moms, 80% of parents suffer from baby blues. Okay. And but baby blues is within the first 2 to 3 weeks when you're feeling down and you're having a hard time, and you're basically adjusting to parenthood. If baby blues doesn't go away, then it could be postpartum depression. It could potentially be postpartum anxiety. And that's sort of where we would want mom to go see a therapist. Now, there is a lot of stigma around it. I hope that with more people talking about it, we can normalize the fact that people do need to go to therapy. And what I always say is that you don't need to be suffering from a postpartum mood and anxiety disorder in order to go to therapy. If you're having a hard time postpartum, or if you're having a hard time when you're pregnant, you can see a therapist. Okay.
Yeah,
you can ask your doctor to refer you. You can see a private therapist. You can write me and ask me to refer you to a therapist. There are so many great therapists out there that specifically work with parents. Now, what should people say and not say around mom? It's really tricky to generalize, but I think it's really important to allow mom to trust her instincts. When people start coming in and telling mom, oh, you're holding the baby too much, why don't you let them cry, or maybe you should hold them more, or why aren't you breastfeeding, or why are you bottle feeding, whatever it is, we really need mom to have her own journey and do it in the way that is comfortable for her. Whenever I work with parents, I talk about the Mother-Baby Dyad. And the Mother-Baby Dyad is basically the fact that we need to look at mom and baby as one. We need to realize that if mom's not okay, baby's not okay. If baby's not okay, then mom's not okay.
What's dyad?
Dyad, it's basically, it's a term that they use in therapy that is a consideration of both entities. So it's the idea of mom not just being one, but mom being mom and baby.
When it comes to fourth trimester, like the time after you deliver the baby, mostly I see parents are like, so busy bringing the items, the baby items, setting up the nursery, setting up the crib, choosing the right kind of stroller, and so many things. Like myself, I was like too much about, having everything that I need for the baby. But I think for me, I never thought of importance of, getting some resources and learning about the fourth trimester in terms of physical and mental well-being. So I want to just, I'm trying to learn how many parents know about this, like how many parents reach out to you. Do you have can you say a lot of parents know about it and they are equally considering, trying to educate themselves about fourth trimester as much as they do for labor and delivery? Or it's not very much considered and it's just like it fades away?
I would say it's a tricky thing in my business in general, that I would say that all moms who have their babies realize that they would have done better had they prepared ahead of time for postpartum. It's really hard to tell people something that they don't know. It's like they don't know what they don't know, right? And so what parents do know is that they need to take a labor and delivery course or labor and delivery class. And so parents are doing that generally because they know they need to prepare for labor and delivery. It's a big medical thing that's happening. And within those classes, they talk a little bit about diapers and they talk a little bit about bathing baby, but they don't talk about dividing responsibilities with your partner. They don't talk about understanding your baby's cues. They don't talk about so many of the things that I talk about in my course. And so when I actually took my labor and delivery course at Mount Sinai Hospital 7.5 years ago, or almost 8 years ago now, I realized that it wasn't enough at the time. And then I realized even more so after the baby was born. So I'm trying to get the word out there that this is something that will help parents if they take the class before the baby is born. My clients who have taken the course before the baby is born have told me, I actually just saw a client this morning and she said to me, thanks to you, I feel so comfortable and happy taking care of my baby. And
Wow.
that's the best,
That's
that's
the
the
best,
best
yeah.
information I can get, right? Like that's the
Yes.
best feedback I can get. And I would say that it's growing. People are starting to realize this is something that they need to learn about beforehand. But sometimes I feel like I'm at it alone trying to get people prepared for the fourth trimester. But I do know that there are other people in my line of work that are trying to do this as well.
Do you think like new parents or moms to be, they underestimate learning about fourth trimester, or like you said that it's getting better now, but how many professionals are doing this? Because for me, I was not really able to come across a lot of people. I did find some professionals who are like sleep consultants and they talk about the fourth trimester, but having just like a tool, a resource just about it would have so much of insights and information. Do you think like parents are still underestimating it? Because for me, I just figured it out along the way myself. If I knew before, I might consider it. Like, why not? If I prepare myself for labor and delivery, why not prepare myself to actually bringing the baby home? Because it's the first time I'm doing this, right? Especially being a first time mom, I think it is good to learn about little bit of everything, not just labor and delivery, but what happens when you have the baby, right? So that's the reason I actually wanted to have you and speak about this, because I want to make this a little bit, give it importance, because I did not have it. Do I think I missed on something? Maybe not, because I don't really know what all things I could learn beforehand. But I really think like it could be so helpful to prepare oneself to, before they enter in the fourth trimester, to know like what all they can expect. It's not just the sleepless nights. It's not just feeding and making the baby sleeps. There's much more to it, right?
I do feel that people are underestimating how much they won't know after the baby is born. But I will say that I do have clients who take the course while they're in the fourth trimester, and it has been helpful for them. I know that personally, I don't think I would have liked to watch the videos while I was taking care of my baby, but I've had clients who do it because the videos are short. Like they're 3 minutes, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
They can just, watch it on their phone when their baby is feeding. Actually, now that I realize it, I actually did my new parent educator certification. I finished my certification while I was feeding my baby. And so, like, while I was on maternity leave. So actually, I guess it is something that I probably would have done.
Yeah.
I remember I was reading all my readings on the phone. But in terms of how many other professionals are doing this, I also am a new parent educator trainer. So I train other people to be new parent educators. And so I do this through something called New Horizons Network under the Perinatal Professionals Association. And if there are any parents out there who realize that they want to get this word out, you can always train to be a new parent educator and help me on this journey of trying to get this information out. So yes, it is becoming more prevalent, but in terms of a course specifically about postpartum and surviving the fourth trimester, I believe that I'm the only one that's running that. It was a online live class, and I've turned it into a digital course that is on demand, that people have access to forever. It's unlimited access, so they can watch it when they have their next baby as well. And
Wonderful.
yeah, and I find that it's really getting all of that information out there to parents who really need it, whether they're expecting their baby or whether they're in the fourth trimester.
Right. Would you also be able to talk about the level of awareness that is around this amongst people in Canada and North America? Do you have any idea if people are really aware about it?
I think that people are aware of perinatal and postpartum mental health. I think that's something that is becoming more prevalent. I work with a therapy clinic called the Well Parent Center in Toronto. And they are amazing at supporting parents who are expecting and parents who have their children. They've just started offering my course as well. And that is I hope that is getting the word out there more. And so I don't think that it's something that is very prevalent. I don't think it's something that people are aware of, but I'm making it my mission to make life easier for new parents.
I hope like people take this more seriously, because it's not just the mom, to be honest, it's the mom and the dad both in this phase, right? There's so many things that the father also goes through along with the mom. So I have like moms coming on the podcast too, and they talk about their motherhood journey and their, postpartum journeys. So one thing that I've always discussed with them in the initial meetings when they, talk about their journeys, is how they had like challenges bonding with the baby, right? This is not something like just one mom would talk about. There's like so many moms that this keeps coming up, like the challenge with bonding with the baby in the initial few days or weeks. So what do you think, like why does this happen, A, and then how can moms help themselves to overcome this? Because it's like a very difficult like very bad feeling for a mom, that they think like, why is this happening? I did have a mom on the podcast, like we just shot an episode, and she was also talking about the challenge with bonding with the baby, and then there's this guilt too, like why is this happening? So why does that happen, and how are you also able to help with your expertise in this area? And then if yes, then what do you do exactly?
Absolutely. So it's very normal for parents to take some time to bond with their baby. When you see your baby's face for the first time, it's the first time you're meeting this human, right? And so to fall in love with somebody that you are just seeing for the first time isn't always easy. I would say that the best thing that parents can do is spend lots of time with the baby, holding them skin to skin, both parents doing skin to skin, feeding, holding the baby while feeding. So if you're breastfeeding, it's easy to hold the baby while you're feeding. But if you're bottle feeding, also always holding the baby, not propping bottles, spending that time to bond with the baby. And giving yourself grace, right? It doesn't always come right away for everybody. If you're having a lot of trouble bonding with your baby, you may consider seeing a therapist, because it could be that something is not feeling right within you, and it actually doesn't have anything to do with the baby. You might not be coping well with the transition to motherhood, which is very, very normal. It's a big, big change, and you're now taking care of a human 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah. So it's okay for it to be hard. It's normal for it to be hard, and seeing a therapist and working with somebody can make it that much easier. The other thing I'll say is I offer something called newborn care support. And newborn care support is basically the follow-up to my Surviving the Fourth Trimester course. So once you have your baby, once you have your specific baby, newborn care support is one-on-one support so that I can help you learn to take care of your baby, learn the tools that you need, get the tools that you need to take care of your baby, your specific baby, right? Because every baby is unique. So you can take the course, you can learn everything, but then it's like, how do I take care of this baby, right? And so I can always support you one-on-one with caring for your baby, starting to understand their cues. And what I always say is that moms and dads, they have the best instincts for their babies. Sometimes they just need a few more tools.
When the baby is in front of you, you feel like blossoms and butterflies everywhere. I think it happens like, I could say like in first 2 weeks when they are home, probably feeling very isolated. This is from a mom's story that I'm actually talking about, that she said like how it was when the baby came out. I was like, wow, that's a part of me and you, like they were talking, both husband and wife. And she felt like so excited to see the baby. And then she said, when I came home, I felt completely different. Like, I felt like I am not the same person anymore in terms of my mental health, especially, even though I want to nourish the baby and care for the baby, but I don't necessarily feel that connection yet. And then I keep blaming myself, like, how is this possible? I just gave birth to him and that's my baby. Do you think that's connected with the hormonal imbalance?
I think it could be. I think that it could be hormones, it could be mental health, it could be just these expectations that society has put on us, right?
Yeah.
there's so many expectations that you're supposed to be absolutely in love with your baby at all moments. And of course you love your baby, but you also need to sleep. You also need to eat. You also need to take care of yourself, right? And so it could be the fact that you feel like your care for yourself has been deferred for this baby, right? So it's hard to say you would need to speak to each parent specifically, because everyone's experience is different. But I would say that is, it would be a flag to me to see a specialist, to see a therapist, but it would also be a realization that not everything is amazing all the time. You can't expect, just like in life, when you're just going about your daily life, sometimes you're just walking down the street and things are just regular, right?
Yeah.
Things are not always exciting and loving. And, when you're waking up with the baby 6 times a night, you're probably irritated and exhausted. And that's okay. That's really normal.
Then again, coming back to when they are in the 4th trimester, what are the common mistakes that parents do, if you can think of anything? Because you have so many parents coming to you, talking about what they have been doing and what just seeking help in terms of what they should not do. So any common mistakes that you could think of that the parents might be doing? These are the things that maybe they should not do or not overthink.
So I would say there's a few, and I don't like to call them mistakes because I feel like parents are just learning to understand their babies, right? And it is a process.
Yeah.
One thing I would say that I find a lot of parents do is they feed their baby on top of a burp. So a lot of the time when a baby cries, we just assume that they're hungry because of course, well, let's just feed them, right?
Yeah.
But if a baby has a burp stuck and then you feed on top of the burp, often all of that milk is just going to come right back up, right? Once they burp, the air bubble comes up and it pushes all of the milk up with it. So really trying to get your baby's burps out as much as possible before feeding or in between feeds would be really, really helpful. Another thing I would say is parents come to me for sleep consulting later. So 4 months plus, 4 months all the way to 5 years. And I find that parents come to me and they go, we made a mistake. We let the baby sleep in bed with us, and now they're never going to sleep in their crib. Okay? I wouldn't call that a mistake. I would say you're doing what you need to do to survive.
Yeah.
And if it's not working for you, and if it's not working for baby, or if you don't feel comfortable with it because it's not safe sleep, then you can change it. You don't have to be sleeping with your baby all of the time. If that's what you want to do, that's okay as well, right? We are fine. What I would say is that as a sleep consultant, I call myself a judgment-free sleep consultant. So when parents come to me, I ask them what's going on in their family. And often they say, I made this mistake, I made that mistake, I made this mistake, but I won't call it a mistake. I'll say it's something that we need to adjust.
Right.
I don't necessarily recommend bed sharing because, as I said, bed sharing is not considered safe sleep. However, culturally, for many people, bed sharing is the way to go. If you're going to bed share, you need to make sure that you're doing it in the safest way possible. So as an example, when I had my daughter, sometimes babies just won't sleep in their bassinet or their crib. And so what I used to do is I would fall asleep holding her in the nursing chair. That is much more dangerous than bed sharing with my baby.
Holding in the nursing chair when the parent and the baby both are asleep?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Much more dangerous because baby can slip, they can get into the folds of the chair. And so the statistics are that 60% of parents will bed share at least once in the first year. And so if you're going to bed share, we want to set up the bed as safely as possible. So a safe bed sharing area will be tight fitted sheets, a hard mattress, baby on the side of the breastfeeding parent, not in between the two parents. There's a whole list of safe bed sharing things that you can do. Now, Health Canada suggests putting baby on their back to sleep in the crib or bassinet with nothing else in the crib, no bumpers, no anything. Okay, and a pacifier is allowed though, and is actually helpful for reducing sudden unexpected infant death. Now, that's what I would recommend. If you can, try to do as much safe sleep as you possibly can. There will be moments where your baby will not sleep in the bassinet or in the crib. During those moments, if you're going to bring baby into bed or if you're going to fall asleep somewhere with baby, it is safest to set up a safe bed sharing area.
It's good to know that, a lot of parents, and not necessarily parents, but people say that, no, you should not do that. And again, I understand the safety part of it, especially when there's like guidelines with Health Canada. I understand that. But sometimes if that's what you think is the best thing that you want to do, again, we keep on saying that the parents are expert for their babies, right? If that's something that you feel like is best for you to do it. But then again, following some safety guidelines, of course.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you are the one that makes the decisions.
Right. And then again, when we talk about what you do and how you support, parents throughout the motherhood, or I would say parenthood journey, did you like set up your own kind of little bit of your own curriculum, or you are just following what you learned? And why I'm asking this is because I want to learn, like, if there is some things that parents have been doing for ages before this even existed, if there are things that they have been doing and you think like, no, this is something they should not do, right? So that, because we constantly hear from our parents and grandparents about certain things that they want us to do, but then we think like, no, this is not something I really want to do because of the resources that are available nowadays. Like, I would say, like, for example, I keep hearing that, put socks on your baby. The baby should be always wearing socks or mittens, whereas I feel completely differently about this. And I think like it's gonna, hinder the development part of it, because if we are covering the baby all the time, they would not really realize, like, their hands, they should do anything that they want. If they want to chew on their fingers, let them do it. But I feel that we should not cover the hands, whereas people from decades ago, I would say grandparents and elder people, they have a different opinion. So is there anything that you personally feel like these are the set of things that people have been doing for like decades, but now if you look at it, you think like it's not right, and that's probably something they should not do?
Absolutely. So that's something that a lot of parents run into, is their parents are giving them advice that's quite dated. Now, it is well-meaning, of course,
Yeah.
and we do need to respect our parents, and when they give us advice, sort of, take it in and decide what we want to do. So I always suggest that anyone that's going to give you advice, they're obviously doing it because they care, right?
Care, yeah.
So rather than just kind of blowing them off, saying, I hear you, that's a really interesting idea, we'll take it back, we'll discuss it, and we'll see if that works for us, right? Because sometimes the information is dated, sometimes the information is really good.
Really good,
right? Yeah. And so we really need to realize that our parents and the grandparents of our children sometimes do have some great resources and some great information to share. In terms of very dated advice, I would say how we were put to sleep in cribs as babies. So we were put to sleep in blankets, on our stomachs with tons of stuffed animals around us. It was so dangerous. What we want to do ideally is put our babies to sleep in a sleep sack, so that there's no blanket, or a swaddle, so there's no blanket kind of getting all around that could go on their face. We want them to be on their back to sleep. The Back to Sleep campaign started in 1993, and it has saved so many babies' lives. The risk of SUIDs has gone down significantly since then. And so it's really, really important to follow safe sleep as much as possible. Now, another thing that I find that parents do, or that parents are told to do by the older generation, is to just put the baby in a swing, put the baby in a car seat, put them into a bouncy chair, so that you can get your stuff done, right? It is totally fine to put your baby in a swing and in any of those containers. We call them containers. The issue is that there's something called container baby syndrome. And container baby syndrome is when babies are put into containers very regularly. So they're put into, we call it, the saying for it, the activity center, right? We call it like the circle of neglect. It's not really, it's something that babies need to be put in sometimes when you have to do stuff or if they want to play. The issue with a lot of these containers is that they're not training the baby's muscles. They're not making babies stronger. The strongest babies are going to be ones that are spending lots of time on the ground, lots of time doing tummy time. We want babies to be doing that as much as possible. So if we're putting the baby in the car seat and driving around for hours and they're not having a chance to get out and move, that's going to be detrimental to their development. A lot of babies during COVID ended up crawling earlier, walking earlier because there was nowhere for parents to go. The babies were just on the floor. I had one of those babies. He started crawling at 7 months. He started walking at 9 months. And who knows, that's just one example. I don't know if it's because of that, but he spent a ton of time on the ground doing tummy time on his back, rolling over, because we didn't have anywhere to go. Whereas my daughter, I would put her in the car going to gymnastics 45 minutes from my house all the time just because I wanted to get out, which is fine. But we really need to keep in mind that our babies need that tummy time. They need that floor time. And those containers are just to help us. They're not necessarily doing anything for the baby.
Then when you talked about, keeping the baby lie on their back, there's a lot of people who are worried about having a flat head, right? So me personally, I was like very conscious because I was trying to understand how to avoid this even before I had my son. And I always, at a very early stage, I would try to keep him like on different sides, of course, when I'm there, because he was too tiny. I cannot just leave him on either of the sides. So I tried to do that change like every few hours. But then nowadays, like people are talking that how the baby just got used to lying flat and doesn't want to turn or switch any sides, and then they end up having flat head. So is that something that can really hinder a lot of the development part of the growth, or it is something that they can easily work it out? And what are your thoughts about it?
So in terms of flat head, the way to avoid it would be lots of tummy time. It would also be using the carrier. A carrier is not a container. A carrier is actually a great way to, first of all, bond with your baby, but also have your baby in a position that is not laying on their back. So when they're asleep or even if they're awake, in the carrier is really, really great for their development. Having baby on your stomach while you're laying down and looking at baby, that also counts as tummy time. Having your legs on the floor and having baby up on your legs, also considered tummy time. And so doing as much of that as we can, ideally, will help baby avoid getting a flat head. Now, in terms of how to lay them down, we still need to lay them down on their back. We just need to make sure they're having lots of time without laying on their back, but being, we want to make sure that we're watching them if they're in tummy time, right? Yeah. In terms of what to do, a lot of babies, yes, do get more comfortable facing one direction. If you're starting to notice that your baby is facing in one direction, it would be really important to go see a physiotherapist, a child physiotherapist, as well as an infant chiropractor or an infant osteopath. Those are people that can really help you with this muscle tension to get baby to look in both directions.
How much tummy time is good tummy time, and also how parents can encourage a baby to be on their tummy, because sometimes that is also a big task.
Yeah, that's a great question. So sometimes babies don't like tummy time and it is a little bit tricky. The best thing that you can do is get down on your baby's level and look at them. So basically doing tummy time yourself, which is also really good for your body to lay down in tummy time, unless you're recovering from a C-section, then I don't want you to do that until you're fully recovered. But laying down with baby and looking at them, rolling them out of tummy time when they're uncomfortable. So not leaving them there when they're really cranky. Once they start to fuss, rolling them over, tucking their arm in under and rolling them over. over. And once they calm down, bringing them back up onto their tummy, rolling them up. We don't want to put babies directly onto their tummy when we're doing tummy time. We always want to take them from their back and roll them in. The reason for that is that it's very jarring for them to be put just directly onto the floor. Other things you can do are toys. Black and white toys are really great at the beginning because they can only see black and white at first, and then adding in more color, red and green, and then more. Also, mirrors are really great for baby. They like looking at mirrors because they think that it's another baby. And in terms of how much, it's really just working your way up. I suggest that every time baby is awake to try to do tummy time. If you're feeding, you obviously want to wait at least 20 minutes after baby has fed to do tummy time. But working your way up to, if they're on their back, you're rolling them in. They're there for a minute, let's say. Great, they're happy, you roll them out. We want to work up our time. We don't want to force them to be in it for a very long period of time because their necks are not strong enough, right? And so I would say try not to be too hard on yourself. Just try to get baby in there as much as possible. The other thing is you can start tummy time from the day that baby gets home from the hospital. Put baby down on their tummy right away when they get home. They're not going to be able to lift their head up, but they will be able to put their head to the side and start getting comfortable on their tummy.
Wow, I never considered that myself. Like, the baby feels and looks so fragile on day one, and there's a lot of things that can be done on day one, but we really don't think about it.
Yeah.
For example, like I had like an episode with Carly, and she was talking about infant massage, that you can do it as early as day one. And I was so surprised. So then tummy time could be like so healthy if we start doing it from day one. And then
Absolutely.
I also think like baby might not get fussy if we started from the very first day.
Yeah,
right?
because
If we
they're used to it.
They get just
Exactly.
used to it, right? And they don't necessarily have to lift their head up.
Yeah.
All they have to do is be on their tummy.
Exactly. And it's really important to also, like I said, watch baby when they're doing tummy time. So
Yeah.
let's say, a newborn is probably going to fall asleep on their tummy if they are doing tummy time when they've just gotten home. So if baby's asleep on their tummy, that's okay. Just make sure you're right there and watching them.
Right.
Because babies who are on tummy time can suffocate very easily. They can put their heads down. So we always want to be watching them while they're doing tummy time. Another thing I'll say is that as babies get older, once they start to sit up, parents often avoid doing tummy time because they're like, oh, well, my baby can sit up, and they just kind of sit their baby up wherever they are. But if you don't continue to do tummy time, then baby might not learn how to crawl. So even when your baby starts sitting up, it's important to still do tummy time.
That's a very good point. Only when they do tummy time, they will, start to crawl. I think
Exactly.
I already started seeing that with my son. The more I put him on his tummy, he wants to make a move. He doesn't want to stay in that position.
Yeah, exactly.
When can we actually start, like support the baby to sit up? Because so my son is like almost 4 months now, and he doesn't like to be on his back. He wants to look around and see what's going on.
Yeah.
So we try to make him sit up with back support because he cannot do it independently. Is that healthy to do? And if so, how long we can make him sit with support?
Yeah, so having him kind of on your lap and looking up is fine. I would say at this age, he could probably do something called a tripod sit, where he would be sitting on his legs and have his two arms in front of him. That's okay. We don't want to do it for a very long period of time because it's just their necks aren't ready to hold up that support. But it's okay because they like to look around. So that's why a front-facing carrier can be really great because they're supported and it's almost
Right.
like they're sitting up, but they're looking out. Those bumbo chairs are not great for their alignment, so I wouldn't suggest putting them in something like that. But holding him up and having him look around for a little bit is totally fine as long as you're supporting him.
Like 10-15 minutes at a stretch, you would say is fine.
I would say even if he's just sitting on your lap and he's happy and he can lean back and support on your chest or on
Yeah.
your stomach, that's fine. Yeah, but if he's just kind of sitting up in a tripod sit, just maybe a minute or two.
Yeah, I'm so excited to try the tripod sit because I think so he has good head control and maybe he would like that.
Yeah.
Because of no support in the front, I'm not just feeling like he should not fall left, right, or center.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
excited to try that.
Yeah,
too.
so putting like a breastfeeding pillow behind him can be very, very helpful for getting him comfortable.
Yeah. And then there's one thing, Jaquie, that I saw on your website, and there's some tools around that too. You're talking about normal versus abnormal. I want you to, shed some light on that, like a little bit to educate new parents on that.
So as a postpartum doula, we call ourselves the experts of normal. So postpartum doulas are the experts of normal, and that means that we can help you through everything that's normal. If we notice that something is abnormal, it's something that you would need to talk to your doctor about. Now, in terms of normal versus abnormal in my course, I talk a lot about postpartum recovery and what looks normal. So, lochia, like the bleeding after a baby is born, anything like that, what the normal postpartum recovery looks like. I'll also mention in there what's abnormal and when you should go seek medical attention right away. So that would be, if you're bleeding through more than one pad per hour, if you have a blood clot that's bigger than a golf ball, anything like that would be when you would need to seek medical attention. So a lot of the normal versus abnormal within the course is about postpartum recovery. Mm-hmm. I would say that generally, if you're ever feeling postpartum that something doesn't feel right, it's really important to go seek medical attention. Mm-hmm. Even if your doctor, it ends up being like, this wasn't a big deal at all, it's better to get it checked out. Yeah. As an example, when I had my daughter on day 3, so we brought her to her first checkup when she was 3 days old, and I asked the doctor if he could look at me because my breasts were really hurting. And he said, it's not an appointment for you. It's an appointment for your daughter. But it was my same doctor's office, though my doctor was away. So the next day, I needed to come in 2 days later on day 5. And I called ahead and I said, I know that this is going to be an appointment for my daughter, but I also go to this clinic. And I was wondering if the doctor can also see me at the same time. So they agreed. I went, they saw my daughter. Then they saw me, and the doctor checked my breasts, and he started laughing. And he goes, your milk's just coming in. And I was so upset because, he's never had milk come in. He didn't know how terrifying it was. I felt like there were rocks in my breasts, and he was laughing at me. But at the end of the day, at least I felt like I had advocated for myself and I understood what was going on with my body because I had asked the questions. So really, if anyone takes anything from this, it's always advocate for yourself and your baby. Absolutely. Especially in our medical system. Our doctors are great, but they don't have the time or the energy to spend on us. And so you need to advocate and ask questions and push for what you want.
Yeah, and as you mentioned it, I'm also wondering what if it was like an infection, if it was mastitis, and then they just said like, no, we cannot see you today, right? And then that's the only thing that you're feeding to your baby.
Yeah.
So you definitely don't want to wait like 2-3 days, or even waiting for hours would be so painful.
Exactly.
Right? It could be so not really dangerous, but it could be like kind of dangerous, right? And
exactly.
Having an infection.
And so many things, like in those first few months, so many new things happen. And especially if you haven't been through it before, it's very shocking. And even with my son, it was my second time. And I remember my transitional milk was bright orange. Mm-hmm. He spit up and it was orange. And I was like, why is this spit up orange? And then I looked at my milk and my milk was orange. And I was so scared. And then it turned out that some meat sauce I had a lot of carrots in it, and it turned my milk orange, right? And so just these little, it happens sometimes.
Oh my
Sometimes
God.
The things that you eat can change the color of your milk. And so it's a wild ride.
It is, yeah, especially for like first time moms.
Yeah.
First time parents. Like, I would say, I would really like to wrap this up by saying no questions is too much questions. Like,
Absolutely.
ask as much as you want to. And then also having like such a brilliant support from postpartum doulas, new parent educator like yourself. It's like, I think it's very, very important to understand the importance of it, because it might make your journey easier than you would have imagined, right?
Absolutely.
And then one very great thing that you mentioned, that you meet parents where they are at. So that also kind of, encourages them to come to you. Like there's nothing like, okay, I'm already 8 weeks postpartum, like I don't think I can get in, or I don't think I can start learning about something because I'm already in the thick of it. So that's a very good thing that you're doing, Jaquie, and I'm so glad that we talked about it today, that no matter where the parent is at, they can come and seek help if they need for anything. And if there's anything that you would like to say to our new parents or mama listeners especially, feel free.
Thank you, Jaita. Thank you so much for having me. The main thing that I want to say is to give yourself grace. This is a beautiful yet challenging time in your life, and you are doing the absolute best that you can. And to all the moms out there that need support, there is always support to be found. If your family, if your friends are not giving you the support that you need, I am here. You can always book in for a newborn care support call, pediatric sleep consulting, or take my Surviving the Fourth Trimester course. My goal is to help as many parents as possible enjoy their postpartum experience.
That's beautiful. I know, Jaquie, we have a lot to talk about. I am glad that we discussed so much about surviving the fourth trimester. You shared like some brilliant insights with us, and we do have more topics to talk about, for which I think we should come back with another episode, because I think as much as surviving the fourth trimester was important, the other areas of expertise that you have is equally important. So we will come back with lots of great insights to share in terms of what other expertise she has. And I would say stay tuned and subscribe so that you don't miss anything.